This whole notion that Republicans were going to be able to gerrymander their way into rigging the midterm elections, and Democrats in the House were just going to unilaterally disarm, roll over, and play dead was a fantasy. And I told that to Mike Johnson months ago, directly. This is not going to end well for you. They started this redistricting fight. We will end it.
Welcome back. That was House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries today as the redistricting battle heats up and comes after Republicans were dealt a major blow yesterday after a 3-judge panel blocked Texas from using its new congressional map that favored the GOP. Joining me now to discuss this, Democratic Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett of Texas. Congresswoman, thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely.
Really appreciate it. Let's start right there. Texas is appealing that ruling to the Supreme Court. What are you anticipating will happen? Do you think that the GOP maps will hold, or do you think they'll go back to the 2021 maps?
I think we'll be on the 2021 maps. A couple of things that are important for us to denote in this is that, number one, this was a temporary injunction. So as it relates to the fact that this was signed into law, we did not have enough time to flesh out and have a full-blown trial. But this 3-judge panel was able to have a 10-day hearing where they heard testimony. And that is something that the Supreme Court justices do not have the benefit of, is actually listening to the testimony and judging the credibility of the witnesses. One of the most important witnesses that was brought forth was actually the map drawer that they hid from the plaintiffs the entire time we were fighting the 21 lines, but they decided to put him on the stand this time, and the court did not find him to be credible. And I think that that is so integral and important, especially since he drew the 21 maps, and they had argued for 4 years that there is no racism here. These are beautiful, amazing maps, but all of a sudden, you decided that you wanted to change the maps.
So if your prediction proves right, if in fact this goes back to the 2021 maps, do you think that other Democratic-led states like California, for example, should abandon their efforts to redraw the maps in favor of Democrats?
No. First of all, California decided that this was going to be a ballot measure that would be put to the people. They did the work, they invested, they canvassed, and they were able to get the people to make a decision. The people have already decided this is the map that they are going to be running on until the next new maps need to be drawn after the census. That is that. And that was triggered because Abbott decided to sign this new map into law. In addition to that, we know that Missouri took away a seat there, so that we know that they're currently in litigation. We know that the only reason the Democrats don't control the House right now is because North Carolina, as soon as they ended up with a Republican majority on that Supreme Court, they decided to take away 3 seats from us, 3 seats that we have won, and it would have made the representation in that delegation 7-7, which is basically representative of the state of North Carolina that consistently flips back and forth. Well, they decided that they wanted to go an extra step, take another seat away, and now Florida has decided that they want to dig in. So no, I don't think other Democratic states should abandon this.
But just to follow up, what do you say to the argument, including from some Democrats, that this will become a redistricting race?
So I don't disagree with that. I think that that is a proper assessment. The problem is that we have a president who has consistently decided that he wanted to employ disastrous tactics, and he's used to Democrats rolling over and saying, okay, whatever, because we want to be the nice guys. It is time to get into the ring, and as Governor Gavin Newsom said, we are going to fight fire with fire. So he wants to play stupid games. You get stupid prizes.
All right, let me ask you about the fact that the bill to release the Epstein files has now passed both chambers. It's headed to President Trump's desk. He says he's going to sign it. You are the vice-ranking member on the House Oversight Committee. There's a big question mark about whether DOJ is going to release the files or about whether they will say, actually, there's an open and active investigation, and so we therefore need to withhold the files to preserve the integrity of the investigation. What, if any, recourse do you have in the House to force the release of these files if that were to happen?
Listen, the way that I look at this is that when you have the full support of the House, then that's when we can finally go to court if we need to. Now, obviously, it's still a Republican-led majority, so we could only see where we could at least ask a court to review in camera and make a determination as to what legally could still come out, if anything. I will tell you that this is all a game, though, because Donald Trump, just like when we reopened the government government. He immediately signed that into law. He has a veto-proof majority. He literally could have just been like, bloop, here it is. And he hasn't done it. And we know that the speaker was complaining and saying, well, we were hoping that the Senate was going to make some changes to this. Listen, if you believe in transparency, you campaigned on this, then be as transparent as possible. I don't care people's political affiliation. As someone who has been involved within the criminal justice system, I care about making sure that accountability is real. You made a promise. We all made a promise as public servants to these survivors, and more importantly, to make sure that there is no other children or women that are going to go through this type of sophisticated system if this system has fully been torn down, which we don't know. We need to learn from our mistakes and decide that we will pass legislation that will prevent something like this from happening ever again.
Are you bracing to have to go to court? Do you think you'll have to go to court?
I think we're going to have to be aggressive. I think we're going to have to be aggressive in whatever ways.
Aggressive?
I mean, myself, I can't go to court just as a sitting member. It would take the speaker saying, listen, we have this, it is lawful, and he would have to be the one to initiate. Unfortunately, it seems like we don't have a separation of powers nowadays. It seems like everything as it relates to the Republicans has ceded their powers to the president, but we will see.
I want to get your reaction to some new polling that shows Democrats outperforming Republicans on the generic ballot, but more voters have confidence in the Republican Party than the Democratic Party. Do you believe that Democrats have a credibility problem when it comes to your base and voters?
I do. I absolutely do. I think.
Why do you think that is?
So, well, I think there's a couple of things. As someone who traveled this country as it relates to the election, I think that one of the things we've not done a really good job is communicating our wins, right? So a lot of times Democrats, their goal, their job is to get in there, put their heads down and make sure that they do the work. They haven't really been going around and doing the propaganda side of things, right? And so there are not people that realize that your overdraft fees, when they got capped at $5, that was the Biden-Harris administration. And ultimately, it was this administration that decided that they wanted to get rid of that. So this is something for that working class person who's like, listen, I need to overdraft so that I can get to my next paycheck, right? Well, they're saying, you know what, we want the banks to make more money off of you, right? Like, we've not sat down and made sure that people understood that the Affordable Care Act, I think people understand now, right? But the tax subsidy, that extra money, or when we look at the child tax credit, they didn't fully understand that. Or even when we look at the stimulus check, they didn't fully understand that because we did not take our time to make sure that we communicate.
Very quickly, because we have less than a minute left, but you've said you're weighing a possible run for Senate to replace John Cornyn. Have you made your decision yet?
I have not.
How close are you?
You know, I mean, I'll get my polling back. I'll talk to my pollsters today.
Are you
we'll get it back on
yes?
Friday. I am definitely open because I did not spend all this money just to be a no. So, so we will see.
All right. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, thank you. We appreciate your honest answer.
Thank you so much.
All right. Great to have you here.
We thank you for watching. And remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.